You know the devil, Phil's here. Good morning.
Let it go. All right, we'll call to order the Bedford Township Board of Zoning Appeals regular meeting for January 3rd. First, we'll do the introduction of members and representatives. We'll start to the left here.
Joe Gore, Bedford Township Trustee.
Jeff Wilson, BZA member.
Kyle Durst, Vice Chair.
Jake Lake, Chair.
Bob Potter, alternate.
Katrina Ingram, Planning and Zoning.
Phil Goldsmith, Township Attorney.
Jody Rector, Planning and Zoning.
All right, now if you all stand, please, for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Rector, if you would please call the roll.
Yes. Mr. Gore,
Here.
Mr. Wilson,
Here.
Mr. Dersch,
Aye.
Mr. Potter,
Here.
Mr. Lake,
Here.
all present.
Thank you. Next, we'll look to have an approval of tonight's agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll support.
All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
All right, none opposed. Move on to the next part, and that is the election of Board of Zoning Appeals for officers for 2022. So we'll look for a chair and a vice chair. So we'll look for any motions for either of those.
I'll make a motion to continue Mr. Lake as chair, if you'll accept.
I'll accept. And I'll make a motion for Mr. Dersch as vice chair, should he accept, and also be appointed to another term.
I'll accept that,
I'll second.
All right.
and I will support Mr. Lake's nomination for Chair.
Any other nominations? Hearing none, we can do the vote.
We'll start with the chair. Mr. Gore,
Aye.
Mr. Dersch,
Aye.
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Potter,
Aye.
Mr. Lake,
Aye.
motion carried. And for vice chair, Mr. Lake,
Aye.
Mr. Gore,
Aye.
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Potter,
Aye.
and Mr. Dersch.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to the approval of our minutes of our December 6th, 2021 meeting. Hopefully everyone was there and is able to, did look over the notes, make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of our regular meeting, December 6th, 2021.
I'll go ahead and support that.
All right, all in favor, state aye.
Aye.
All right, none opposed. Move on to new business. We have a public hearing for the appeal of Mr. Bonowit at 166 West Erie Road tonight, requesting a 150-foot plus or minus frontage variance and a plus or minus 4-acre variance. If somebody would like to open the public hearing or make a motion to open the public hearing?
I'd make a motion to open the public hearing.
Support.
All in favor, state aye.
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 All right, public hearing is now open. Ms. Rector, if you wouldn't mind.
Yes, again, the applicants are Richard and Katie Bonowit, 166 West Erie Road, Temperance, Michigan, parcel number 5802-011-03110, on approximately plus or minus 11.5 acres, agriculturally zoned, master plan designation, agricultural preservation, looking to create two parcels. Parcel A will remain with require a plus or minus 4 acres and 150-foot frontage variance on Erie Road, and parcel B requires a 180-foot frontage variance on Erie Road. The existing parcel consists of approximately 11.5 acres with 330 feet of frontage on Erie Road. The applicant is seeking to split the 11.5 acre parcel into two parcels in an agricultural zoning district. The applicant has submitted a layout proposing parcel A resulting in a 1 acre parcel with 180 feet frontage on Erie Road and to maintain the existing home. Parcel B resulting in a 10.5 acre parcel with 150 feet of frontage on Erie Road. Per section 400-1800 Schedule of Regulations, a minimum of 5 acres and 330 feet of frontage is required, thus requiring 150-foot frontage variance and a 4.5 acre variance for the proposed parcel A and 180-foot frontage variance for proposed parcel B. The applicant has stated in the submitted letter, the intent is to sell the 1 acre parcel with the existing home, demo the existing barn, and build a new accessory building for storage while the new dwelling is being constructed on parcel B. The Planning Department has advised the applicant, per section 400-1903 accessory building, no accessory building in any zoning district can be placed on a vacant lot or parcel. Thus, should the variance be granted, the proposed accessory building and the proposed new home shall be submitted to the Building Department, reviewed and approved by the building official, all as one permit application. Please refer to the applicant's letter for further explanation on the practical difficulty. At this time, no letters or calls of objection have been received. However, the applicant had provided letters of no objection from 7 of the surrounding parcels. Should the variances request be granted, the variants are for parcel A 4 plus or minus acreage area variance and 150-foot frontage variance, and parcel B, 180-foot frontage variance on Erie Road. The following shall be considered in any motion to approve. The applicant shall submit for a land division application through the assessing department and continue to move forward through the land division process. And once the land division is approved, a demo permit must be submitted for the accessory building on parcel B, must be torn down, and a building permit application shall be submitted, reviewed, and approved through the building department for the proposed new home and new accessory building as one permit application, as no accessory building is permitted on a vacant parcel or lot. It should be noted the variance is granted for 6 months from the date of the board's approval, and that is noted on the application.
Thank you. I assume you're the applicant? Yep. Is there anything else you'd like to add to what Ms. Rickard said?
No, that pretty much sums it up. I mean, I've lived in this area.
Oh, if you don't mind, sorry. Come to the podium, please. Thank you.
Go ahead and state your name and address, too, for the
Richard Bonowit, 166 West Erie Road, Temperance, Michigan. Me and my wife have both lived in this area our entire lives. Our parents are really close to us. We've just outgrown the house that we're in. We don't want to move. We'd like to build new, but maintain the property that we're on. So that's really why we're seeking it. We're both healthcare workers, and we utilize our parents a lot for child care. So it'd be nice to stay where we're at.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. All right. I would see if there's any public comment, but seeing there's no one else in the crowd tonight, I'm going to assume there's no other public comment. So if that is the case, I'll look to close the public hearing at this point. Would anyone like to make a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll go ahead and make the motion. I'll go ahead and make the motion to close the public hearing.
I'd second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No opposed here, so we'll close that. We'll open it up to see if there's anyone that has some questions for either Township or the applicant, or if there's any other discussion. I have a couple of questions, if you don't mind coming back up, just so we can. Now, is there any reason why the current house couldn't be torn down right now and build something new on the entire 11-acre property?
No, there's no reason it couldn't.
And then, second question for you, around additions, is there a reason why there couldn't be an addition to the current existing home to fit your needs?
Financial. I mean, I don't think we could do
Okay.
an addition. We would use the equity out of the current home to build new.
Okay.
And I do have multiple family members as well as friends that are interested in the current home that we're in now if it does get approved. So.
You guys have any other questions for Mr. Bonowit?
Good.
Yes. I guess the one question I have is related to the practical difficulty. And does the the practical difficulty that's stated in the application, does that is that appropriate? Is a practical difficulty supposed to be related to the property itself? Or I'm looking at Phil because I'm not sure if you can tell me to look elsewhere if that's more appropriate. But no, I'm not sure if that's
Practical difficulty, generally speaking, under Michigan case law is related to characteristics of the land in question. Geographical, current use. Some of the questions I might ask is, I mean, if the house there, the ranch house, is in good repair, that would be something that could be considered a practical difficulty to tear it down to build one house on the 11-acre parcel. Something to be considered. That there is a financial component to that. The other thing I guess I would be looking at is that this is an agriculturally zoned parcel, and the master land use plan has it long-term agricultural preservation. Is there farming being done there? If this variance was granted, would farming continue to be done there? Does it eliminate the agricultural nature of the parcel, or does it continue it? Is this land particularly suited to agricultural preservation or agricultural production? I don't know the answers to those questions, but those might be some of the questions I would ask the applicant, if that makes sense.
okay. Yes. Also would a practical difficulty related to the land itself, would that have anything to do with, or could it be viewed as a difficulty that it's an 11.5 acre parcel that only has the frontage, the minimum frontage that's allowable for in ag for something as small as 5 acres?
Well,
Is that-
it's something to consider. The minimum requirement is 330 feet of frontage, as you know, at 5 acres. This is 330 feet of frontage, and so it's a deeper parcel of property. It's goes back, looks like 1,453.71 feet. So you've got twice the area that's required in an ag district with the exact frontage that's required in an ag district. So there are a lot of residents along that area, a lot. I think years ago there was an application made for the parcel to the east, which was rejected, which is also a 11.99 acre parcel, if my memory serves me correct. But each application has to or should be measured by its own merits. So those are just some of the things that I thought as I was looking at the application. What's the current use? What's the projected long-time use? Is it being used agriculturally now? Would it be continued to be used agriculturally? Where would the new home be constructed on the parcel? How would that relate to the surrounding areas and in keeping with what's there now, what's there in the surrounding parcels? Just a lot of questions, the answers to which I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I got a question. Jody, is that entire area around there zoned agricultural?
Yes. I believe to the west, not shown on the map, I believe you're going to see there is a residential neighborhood there. But
Correct.
the parcels to the adjacent to it are agriculturally zoned.
Okay. So again, looking to the west, there's 3 parcels that are, again, 1 acre, barely a half acre, barely a little over an acre and 100 feet, and then something labeled, what's Midway Gardens labeled there?
That where it comes into Maplewood and Golf, that's the subdivision area.
Now, that Midway Gardens where you see lot 43, 44, 45, are
That's
those?
part of that subdivision, but they have frontage on Erie Road. Those are the lot numbers. Are you looking at the map with the section
Yeah.
map?
Yeah, well, I'm looking at the map, but are all those buildable lots right there?
Most likely, they all have homes on them.
Okay.
Some of them could have been combined, but this is the section map of the area. And we supplied that because at the last meeting, the board requested to start seeing the surrounding parcels.
Correct.
So those, some of those with the 86 feet of frontage on them, some of them could have been combined when the plat was. I'm not sure. Without looking at it, it could have been, the plat could be back from the 50s or the 60s from that area. So, but all of those are created individual lots at the time of the plat.
Okay. And for Phil, would a practical difficulty be for a potential loss of residents from the township? I mean, we have a lifelong resident that has family ties here that potentially could move. And I understand, I get it, that they outgrow the house. I've been in that position. And so I understand that completely.
Yeah, it's a factor for you to consider. I wouldn't put it in the practical difficulty category. I'm pretty liberal with the practical difficulty category, as you probably know, but that probably is not one that fits, and financial considerations in and of itself doesn't fit by Michigan law. But the questions that I raised, could be taken into consideration with respect to practical difficulty in terms of how it's used now, how it's projected to be used, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay,
I think
thank
it might help if you want to come to the podium, please.
As proposed, we don't plan on building any further back. There's actually a fence line, probably maybe 100 yards from the front, that we're not going to go any past that. We're actually going to build in front of where the existing barn is. I'm a big hunter. It's mostly woods, mostly brush. We're not going to go back into any of that. So along his points too, what I'm asking to do really isn't out of line from anything that's up and down that road, as far as how close houses are and stuff like that.
In other words, you're saying it fits within the character of the neighborhood.
Correct.
As it currently exists.
Correct.
Is that property in agricultural production, or is it all woodland?
It's all woods.
I think just
Okay.
about everything around there is woods. I don't think there's any.
Across
Other
the
than the
street.
field, yeah, and across the street, I don't,
yes.
I mean, I think potentially has the potential to be a neighborhood eventually within a few years. And the property to the direct east of me just got approved for a split and is getting built on.
So what you're dealing with is the addition of a residential dwelling unit in a agricultural zoning district, and that's a permitted use, of course, you know that. But you're taking an existing parcel of property that complies with the zoning district, and you're creating two non-complying lots in terms of one in terms of area and frontage, and one in terms of frontage only. It's the other thing you look at, it's not going to change the nature and the character of the neighborhood, other than you're adding another residential dwelling unit in an area that is known for residential dwelling units. So, the reason we're having a lot of discussion here, it's not real easy. But those are things to take into consideration. You wouldn't be removing productive agricultural land from production because it's woodlot, and it would remain woodlot. And that's, something to consider. Again, you measure each application based upon the characteristics of the land and what exists and what the applicant proposes to do.
I'm going to just kind of throw this out here. I mean, one of the things I'm rattling around with my head is what is the practical difficulty here? And as much as I feel for, having a growing family and having family close by, the reason for the split here is self-created, right? Is there any reason why a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house doesn't work for a family? Well, yeah, you could say they're growing, but is that a practical difficulty that has something to do with the land? In this case, I would say no. It doesn't have anything to do with the land. It does have to do with wanting to stay on the property and building a larger home that suits the family's needs. I understand that. But when I'm thinking about how do we apply a practical difficulty to this particular situation, the one I struggle with is how does what with this piece of property would require a split? And I can't find anything that would require a split of this property, other than just to say there's other properties close by that look kind of like what we would create. And I don't know that that's a practical difficulty that would stand.
And I understand your position, and my response would be, I'm looking at the map, and there's nobody farming over there. There's no farming going on. I mean, he's not going to farm back there 11 acres. It's all woods, and everything built up to the west is all built up. Maybe there's an open field behind your property. Is that being farmed by back there?
No.
I mean, he's in an agricultural district that's not being utilized whatsoever for ag. I mean, nothing, other than there's a bunch of homes. And I think Mr. Bonowit's correct. Eventually, we're going to have to deal with the open fields across the street that are eventually, probably one of these days, going to be a subdivision or something like that. I'm not saying I know any information. I'm just saying the way building's going around here, there's a vacant piece of property. Somebody's putting a building on it. So that's what my response would be, is just there's no agricultural going on his property or any of the other properties surrounding that.
You touched upon something, Joe. The property to the south of Erie Road has already been rezoned and approved for a large residential subdivision. It just
I was
hasn't
just shooting from the hip on that, Phil. I had no clue.
Yeah, it just hasn't been developed. It
Okay.
happened. It happened as a result of litigation, and the court approved that area for a pretty high density residential development, like 450 homes dense. But that happened around 2008 or thereabouts, and then the decline in the economy. It just hasn't been developed yet. It probably will someday, and then there's water and sewer available to it. And with the extension of South County Water along Lewis Avenue to the north, and it's going to go back into this platted subdivision, I believe, and loop back out. So those are just some facts for you. I think the parcel to the north is you'll see it, a 10.349
Yes.
acre parcel. I'm just giving you facts.
Correct. Yep.
I'm just, not expressing a preference one way or the other. That property, I believe, is accessed from that east-west road within the Midway Gardens subdivision, and I believe it's used for one residential dwelling unit, I believe.
Right.
Maybe the applicant
Correct.
could confirm that.
Yeah.
And then the property further to the north, a 10-acre parcel, it would be, well, that one may be accessed from Hickory Drive, also part of the Midway Gardens subdivision. I'm not sure what that's used for. Is that being
I'm not
farmed?
sure what the second one is.
Okay.
I know the property to the north of me, but I'm not sure beyond that.
Okay. So again, just facts of
Right.
what the surrounding neighborhood consists of.
I was looking at one. Is there any discussion worth having regarding the shed, its condition, or it being removed, or how that could potentially?
Well, there's
Improve
plenty of reason to
things,
have
or-
discussion about that, because if this board was inclined to grant the applications, I would make it subject to removing. It's got to be subject to the land division application being approved, going through assessing, and being approved if required by the township board. I don't know if the depth to width ratio would require it.
I did not look at that. I figured once they got closer, determination tonight. If it's over the 6-to-1 depth-to-width ratio, it would have to go to the township board for approval as well.
I guess I was wondering in the context of if it were in disrepair or too large or out of compliance now, would it benefit, by removing it and building the house, would you be bringing things?
Well, the shed, they would have to remove, because I believe that's their intent in the area to build is where the existing shed is. And I believe their intent is to tear it down. However, the intent is to build in a new accessory building on that parcel, and that's what it would have to be in conjunction with the house.
Yeah, okay.
So you would have to make, if you were going to grant it, you'd have to make it a conditioned upon, just like it states, just like Jody read to you, the applicant would need to go through the land division process. It would be conditioned upon that, and that being granted, and then pulling a demolition permit, removing that existing accessory structure, because you can't just split it, get approval, and leave it as is indefinitely. It would have to be, that shed or accessory building or whatever you want to call it would have to be demoed, and that would require pulling a permit. Just, again, facts for you to consider.
I've got a question for them.
Mr. Potter?
All righty. Richard, you indicated that what your plan is to build, if this is approved, to build a home near or in front of where the existing shed is now. So you'd be fairly close to Erie Road.
Yeah, it won't be any further past what the current house is
So,
right now. The shed that's currently there will be the approximate location of the new barn, and then the house would be in front of that.
Okay. So this area is all zoned agriculture, and I do believe that wooded areas, brush areas, that's appropriate for use in agriculture. It doesn't necessarily have to be row crop. Doesn't have to have wheat or corn or vegetables growing on it, and it doesn't have to be bare land. So the land use there is appropriate for ag, and you're not proposing to change that.
No.
Only to the
Where we're looking
extent
to build
of-
is currently part of our
Only
yard
to the
right now.
extent of building a house there and a bigger barn. So,
Mr.
Am I-
Chair, I would just like to add, I'm not sure when the home that's existing was built, so keep in mind the setback could be increased from where the existing home is on an agricultural parcel when the home is built. I'm not sure where the distance actually will be, but it would have to meet the schedule of regulations on a setback from the section line road. So it could be farther back than the existing home, depending when it was built.
no, I guess my main point was if there was going to be a long driveway back to the center of the property, and then a home and a barn and a living area built around that would be a larger impact on.
I don't want to
the
disrupt
ag
any of the woods that's
nature.
back there.
So that was my only. But thank you.
The tricky part, I kind of see, you look at the driveway on the side of the house, it's a side load garage. If I'm looking at this correctly, you're really limited in the amount of space that you would have to build something next door, so it would have to be a little behind, right? So, to the setback conversation, and then the accessory building, et cetera, in that space, you'd have a lot of room to build whatever you wanted from an accessory standpoint. I think it would be pretty much unlimited, except for the height. I still struggle with the practical difficulty. I'll just be perfectly blunt. Even if something goes in across the street, if it's approved or whatever the case may be, we have to take each individual case based upon the merits of that case. And I'm still struggling with the practical difficulty.
Mr. Chair, and I don't know if this could be considered practical difficulty, no matter what he does, he would need a variance. Even if he split it right down the middle, 5.5, 5.5, he's fine. but he still doesn't have the frontage even
Correct.
for 2 lots.
That's right.
So no matter what, he would have to come before us for a variance. So I don't know if that's a practical difficulty or not.
Well, I think the alternate is if we've outgrown the home is an addition, correct?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the non-variance route that could be pursued would be to add on to the existing home in some manner.
You could do that, or, there's other than a financial reason, there's nothing to stop you from tearing down the current home and building new.
Right. Well, I was in that position myself about 15 years ago, and we went the route of the addition versus moving because we liked the area. We didn't want to move or anything like that. But I'm good.
And if there's no further discussion or questions for the applicant or the staff, look for a motion if somebody's prepared.
I'm going to go ahead and make a motion. I'm going to make a motion to grant the variance requested by Richard and Katie Bonowit, 166 West Erie Road, Temperance, Michigan, 48182. Property number 5802-011-031-10, zoned agricultural. Grant the variance requested for parcel A of 4 acres and 150 foot of frontage, and parcel B 180 foot frontage variance. With the practical difficulties being what I consider they're in an agricultural zone that's not being used for agriculture at all. There's no farming going on. There's no farming going on anywhere in the area. And it's aligned with the parcels that are in that area. And I'm open to friendly amendments. Anybody?
We have a motion. Do we have support or any amendments?
I'll go to the amendment section here. From what Ms. Rector presented, we need to include the language regarding the demolition and the construction of the new home after the existing accessory building is removed, and the home has to be constructed before the accessory building on the new property is constructed.
Also, it needs to be subject to approval of the land division.
Accepted. And then other discussion I'd like to have is there any time frame that we'd like to place on this? Should it be approved? Usually we throw something 6 months, something reasonable to make sure this happens and moves forward.
By law, there is the 6 months, but what that would entail, Kyle, is that you would have to get the land division approved, and technically you're supposed to record a new deed that would, there would be 2 deeds recorded that would be representative of each new parcel. So that is required to be done within the 6-month time frame. If you wanted to attach a time frame with respect to demolition of the existing outbuilding or structure, you could make it within that same time frame, or any other time frame that you think is reasonable.
I'll let others chime in on that. Demolition's always a tricky one that we come across.
What's the time frame are you guys looking at to start?
This year.
This year?
Yeah, within this year. And I'm flexible. I mean, if I got to do things a certain way, that's fine. I mean, if I can't do the barn first, the reason for the barn was just to keep, lawnmower and stuff to maintain the land while the house was being built. But if that can't happen, that's fine. If I got the barn's on its last leg. I mean, if that's got to come down before it to be approved, that's fine.
Mr. Chair, the barn, it would be on a vacant parcel once it goes through a land division. So it would have to be torn down. That's why the new accessory has to be in conjunction to the building department with the home, because we do not
Essentially,
allow
what
that.
we're saying is that accessory building would have to come down prior to the land division.
We would not sign off on the land division until a demo permit and the barn was torn down.
Well, there you go. There's a timeline. It would have
So it
to,
has to be done before the.
When
before
you submit
deed-
for the
land
application
split.
for the land division, they will request you to submit to the building department for a demo permit as well before we sign off to approve the land division.
Okay.
Right, so we have some amendments. I don't know,
Okay with
was
the
that a
amendments.
support from you, Mr. Dersch, or was that just an amendment?
We'll call it amendments at this time,
So we're still looking, we have
just in case there's any others out there that I missed.
so we have a motion, but we still don't have support.
We have is it, maybe if it's not appropriate, please tell me, but how we've asked Phil a number of times about the practical difficulty. I mean, did we kind of get, could we maybe get a little bit of guidance, Phil, based on or what Joe was saying as far as his reasoning or his logic regarding the practical difficulty, whether
Based on Joe's motion, I interpreted, and he could enunciate it if he chooses. I interpreted the practical difficulty to be, although zoned agricultural, this parcel, it is in an area predominantly used residentially, and that there's no agricultural production in the area, and specifically no agricultural production on this parcel because it's a woodlot. So that was my interpretation of his motion as to practical difficulty.
okay.
Right, we have a motion, we have some amendments. Is anybody looking to support? If there is
Is it
no,
appropriate to discuss before? The
You have to
second?
have a second before you have discussion.
Okay, all right.
if not, we could also throw another motion out there if there's a competing motion that we'd want to have.
Well, you can't have a competing motion.
Oh, man.
If there's no second, it dies for lack of support. Then you could have another motion. So it either needs to be seconded, and then you take a roll call vote, or if it's not seconded, it dies for lack of support, then it's back on the table.
With a second, would we then be able to have the discussion that Mr. Potter wanted to have prior to a vote?
Yes. Once it's seconded, you can have discussion prior to a vote.
Okay.
Okay.
And that, I guess, in that case, I would second Mr. Gore's motion with Mr. Dersch's amendments as stated.
And for discussion, Mr. Potter?
Yes, like you, I'm concerned about the practical difficulty. As I understand it, part of, or a portion of that practical difficulty can be financial. The applicant needs, in order to make any change, either, well, in order to make this possible, they're planning on using the capital that they build up in the existing home. And as I understand it, Phil, you said that could be a component, a reasonable component of practical difficulty, but not by itself. That's not appropriate.
Not by itself. There's some recent case law. See, the old standard used to be hardship, and the standard now is practical difficulty. There's a dichotomy between hardship and practical difficulty in that hardship did not take into account strictly financial. Financial can be one thing the board can consider under the practical difficulty standard, but there needs to be more. And I think it's been discussed what the additional, I think it was part of Joe's motion, what the additional considerations that he has that he based his motion on, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, and I see where you're trying to go with that, Mr. Potter. I think the issue I would have with that as well is that it's still yet a self-created, I need to sell the piece of property to be able to build what I want to build.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's I understand it, but it as Mr. Goldsmith indicated, it could be a component of the practical difficulty, not standalone, but
We had some discussion. Mr. Durst, did you have some discussion as well?
I'm with Mr. Potter that I think we can't consider just the financial aspect on its own. It can be combined with other merits, but I know we've declined such motions in the past strictly based on financial practical difficulties without other merits behind it.
Okay, so we have a motion and we have support. I think we're ready for a vote. Ms. Rector?
Mr. Gore,
Aye.
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Dersch,
No.
Mr. Potter,
No.
Mr. Lake.
No.
Motion failed.
Thank you, Ms. Rector. All right, we'll move on to the next piece, which is public comment. Seeing we have one person in the public. Is there any comments you'd like to make, or? No. We're good on public comment. Board and staff comments?
At this time, we've had some inquiries on some additional variances for next month, but we have no application, and the deadline, I believe, is January 14th for the BCA. So hope everyone had a Merry Christmas and a happy and safe New Year, and it's good to see everybody back in the building.
Sure, go ahead. Yeah.
Is there any different way that I can propose it for it to be approved? Because with it not being approved, I am probably moving out of the area, and me and my wife, like I said, have both lived here our entire lives. We probably will be moving out of the area if it's not approved. Is there something different that I can change?
The only thing you could do, short of coming back, well, you can't come back to this board unless there's a material change in circumstances, and there probably isn't. The only other thing you could consider would be to request a rezoning of the parcel, and that would most likely be a long shot, but you could, that's something that you could consider.
Okay.
If it was rezoned to residential, then what you propose could be done.
That's true. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Goldsmith?
Nothing. Thank you.
I have nothing.
Mr. Potter?
No. No comments, please.
No comment at this time?
Just thank our wonderful alternate, Mr. Potter, for being here again.
You're welcome. Thank you.
That's it.
I don't have anything. Thank you.
Just wish everybody a good new year, and everybody please stay safe with what's going on. So, everybody. And again, I enjoy this board. I enjoy the discussion that we have. It's a very, very pleasant discussion, whether, and everybody gets along fine. So I really appreciate the conversation with everybody. So you guys all have a good new year.
All right. We're good for adjournment then. Motion, support, adjourn. All right, thanks.